Hey guys, welcome to Walk and Talk, where you get to see me increasingly winded from my morning constitutional. Today we're going to be talking about why an oligarchy is bad from a holistic point of view. Let's zoom out, right? I want to be clear here. I'm not talking about small businesses. Small businesses are extremely important. Before the election, I heard a lot of people say that Trump is a really good businessman and the country needs to be run like a business. Um, and that's a really scary thing to hear because uh, our government isn't a business. So an oligarchy is basically when you sell off all of your government agencies and your governance to private corporations. So the government has institutions that it is built basically to run certain parts of the government, and those are not private corporations; those are government agencies. Um, the idea in an oligarchy is to get those agencies into the hands of a private corporation in order to, well, it's just for some people, they believe that it'll basically make them run better. Now, let's distinguish between a government agency and a corporation real quick uh, by looking at what a corporation is. Let's say you have a dozen people who create a corporation. That corporation is run by a board of directors or a CEO or a CEO. But legally, it's a distinct entity, almost like a person. So first you were 12 people, and now you've done this legal alchemy to join those 12 people and create this new entity that's called Enron or whatever it's called, right? And you've done this alchemy to create this new person. Um, Now this new entity has a lot of advantages and almost no disadvantages. It's like a superhuman, so that if anything happens, if somebody wants to sue, they sue the corporation and not any of you 12 people who started the corporation. The CEO or the board of directors work for the shareholders, and their job is to make more money next year than they did this year, every year, for infinity. Unfortunately, we live in a closed, finite system, so we can't just infinitely extract resources and money into infinity. So now you 12 friends have created a superhuman out of thin air, um, and this superhuman can actually be resurrected if it dies. Look, just look at Enron or the banking crisis or whatever. You have corporations that got so big that when they had to be cut off or they were dying, the government had to step in and either resuscitate or keep it on life support in fear of the bankruptcy of one of these corporations, basically causing infrastructure collapse. Some corporations can get away with crazy, crazy things legally, things that a human being could never get away with. Um, I mean, even just think about like social media, right? You're probably watching this on social media. And I think we can all admit that there are some good things about social media, but there are books and books and books and books being written right now, basically explaining how social media turned our reality, our modern reality, into a complete hellscape. And we realize that and we understand that. And yet, who was on stage with Donald Trump at the inauguration? Which brings me to my next point. Corporations, as opposed to the government, do not have your best interests at heart. They're not even supposed to. I know a lot of conservatives have like really latched onto this idea that you can vote with your wallets. But I think if you look really carefully, that's clearly not an option. Now you might say, Ronan, but I mean, that sounds like politics. And yes, it does. And that's one of the problems, is that we've let corporations into our democratic process. With lobbying, you can set up a corporation or just be a corporation and funnel the money that you make into politics, making sure basically that the politics favor you rather than regular ordinary citizens. So basically, over the last 50 years, corporations have been becoming stronger and stronger through the use of lobbying. And so they were already superhumans superhuman entities, and they've just gotten stronger. CEOs work with a multi-billion-dollar PR industry whose job it is to sell you products, and continue to extract wealth from you to them. It's like a siphon. Shareholders don't have to do anything for the company. They sit back while the CEO extracts wealth continuously. Small businesses cannot compete. Never mind the fact that we have some of the highest business taxes in the entire world. And here's the thing, last thing, corporations do not have any prerogative to be truthful or to be ethical. They don't even have to behave in a legal sense correctly. In fact, if a corporation has a CEO who's found to have, even if it's done in the best interest of everybody, if what he did was morally right and best, if he acted in a way that took money out of the shareholders' pockets, he can be sued for doing the right thing. A huge part of the job of a corporation is to sell you shit that you don't need and to convince you that certain things are valuable that are not valuable. Just think about the things that society, as people you know, are addicted to right now. Just think about all the money that you give to corporations that you don't necessarily need to because they've sold you on some idea of a product, or that you need to have it, or that not having it makes you lesser than. These are the kind of psychological manipulations that happen when you combine CEOs and PR agencies. And you know, for all that Trumpers talked about draining the swamp, they got exactly what they wanted. He drained the swamp, and then he went back in and he put in some new gators. And those gators don't have a swamp anymore, and they're hungry, and they're mad. And these gators are big. And if they eat another gator, because they were hungry, they turn into a super gator. So really, at the end of the day, why does anybody support anything like this? Why would anybody support super huge corporations taking over the government? It's because they've been convinced that they want to be a part of the club. You know, you can be a Mark Zuckerberg or a Jeff Bezos too. But it's just like going to the casino or gambling, right? The house is always going to win. The game is set up such that there are less winners than there could be. You're not going to win. You're not going to be invited to the club. And yeah, you might get lucky every once in a while, but are you going to even be able to handle the taxes and keep that money if you do get it? They have entire institutions set up to make sure that you don't get in the club.